hello guys. Good evening to everybody here in our time zone. And of course, good morning then to the other side of the world. For our today's episode of What's Up Doc. I am your diet doctora, Dr. Josephine Grace Chua Rojo. If this is the first time of you watching in this page, welcome po. If this is also your regular tuning in our page, maraming salamat for your continued support. For today's episode, we've been tackling a lot about low carb and about fasting and everything in between. And usually we always cater beginners. And today is somewhat special because we will not just talk about beginners, especially yung mga common mistakes, no? We are going to help beginners maybe transition into pro in an easy, streamlined, and a way for us to have this in a more sustainable way, especially for those who are looking into doing low carb and at the same time incorporation of fasting, but are also doing physical activities. Okay, so as a disclaimer, we never encourage this is better. And yes, welcome. Let's all welcome our guest for today, Kuya Oli, our admin, one of our admins in low carb feasting and fasting community, and also Life Without Rice. So, Olledan, Balleras, Kuya Oli, Coach Oli, what do you want us to call you po?
Oli is fine. It's
Oli is fine. So Oli is going to help us, okay, make us see some differences when it comes to low carb and possibly no, yung hindi natin usually natatakol. So usually whenever we talk about low carb, we always limit the carbohydrate content. But it is of course for the sake of healing, for the sake of our health goals, like say for example, weight goals, reversing diabetes, lowering of blood pressure. But how about if you are already at the top of your health and not just on maintenance phase? And say for example, hindi ka lang na-achieve mo na yung goal mo at healthy ka na in a sense. But how about you want to optimize more? You want to become stronger. You want to become better than you used to be. You don't want to just settle on what is normal healthy. Is there a way? Pwede ba kayang ma-incorporate low carb, fasting, when to do not so low carb, when to do a strict low carb, and how can we maximize it in our for our advantage, especially optimizing not just health but also performance. Okay, our endurance, our stamina, lahat ng yan. So Ollie will be there to guide us. So Ollie, if you can share us just a little background about yourself, it would be great.
Hello everyone. Hi Doc. Thank you for
Hello.
inviting me here. Thank you for not having this episode right next to Gilbert's episode because he is a hard act to follow. So thank you for doing that. I mean, Grace is also a hard act to follow, but Gibo is on a different level.
Iba,
So
iba
it's
yon,
such a
iba. Sige
such
po.
a good storyteller. Um, but on a more personal level, I was born and raised in Pangasinan. I was born and raised in a farm about 44 years ago, and in a small town of San Manuel. Hello to all San Manuelians. And I moved to the US about almost 3 decades ago. And this
Oh.
is where I met my wife, Marjorie, and we have a 17-year-old daughter, Danica. And that's pretty much it about myself personally. There's really nothing special. But I've been in this lifestyle, intermittent fasting lifestyle, for about just over 2 years. I started in April of 2019, and I started just practicing IF or intermittent fasting. I didn't change my diet or anything like that. Then maybe about 6 months or the year after, I started transitioning into a more low carb centric way of eating.
Mm.
And I mean, that's the last 2 years. There were a lot of things to learn.
Mm-hmm.
My background before I started intermittent fasting was I've been running marathons. I'm an endurance runner since 2000. I would say 2015. So I
Oh,
started in 2009. So I've been running marathons for 4 years before I started intermittent fasting. And but before that, I've been kind of running short distances for the last 20
okay.
years.
Okay.
But
So it's
that's
somewhat
pretty
safe to
much it.
say that you are like from a typical adult right now. You are somewhat active, living a more active lifestyle compared to the general public.
I was
Somewhat.
living somewhat an active
Mm-hmm.
lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
I love working out. I'm always active. I'm probably more active than most people because I love
Yeah.
being outdoors, hiking,
Mm-hmm.
running, just working outside. But I was never really healthy. I mean, I thought I was
Okay.
healthy, but I mean, we all thought we are healthy
Yeah.
until we find out that we were not really healthy.
Yes. I think there's also one idea, na especially for those who are somewhat generally active, because we were raised in an era where exercising or being physically active automatically means healthy. 'Di
Yeah,
ba?
that's the
Meron tayong
misconception.
ganyong, yeah, that is a misconception that we have to avoid. Of course, we are not demonizing exercise. In fact, we are encouraging everybody to do exercise, but never put all of your hopes and dreams on exercise alone,
Yeah,
right?
I use a ratio of, I would say, 80-20. You do 80%, 80% is your diet and 20% is your workout.
Oh,
If
that's
I
what
follow
you
that
used to
rule.
do, or that's what you are still doing now?
That's what I'm doing now.
Okay,
Um,
okay.
my idea of nutrition and running back in the day was actually had this comment on my wife's Facebook post one time, but she's also a runner. After she
Okay.
ran 13 miles, she posted her run. And in the comments section, I commented something like, I run because I can, and I run because after my run, I can eat anything I want. And
Oh,
that is such a misconception.
yeah.
Um, and the last 4 years that I was running up to 2019, I was always fueling myself with sugar, just pure sugar.
Okay.
We During a 26-mile run, I probably consume about, I would say, in the vicinity of 1,000 calories of pure sugar.
Mm.
And to add to that, all the fruits and the bread and the meal that you eat before that, the carb loading,
Yeah.
and
And
so
before, we just compute for the pure sugar. We don't
yeah,
compute for the sugar that's actually coming from starch, which is still actually sugar,
yeah,
but just
we
in a
do.
complex form.
It's funny when you run a marathon. Along the way, they will give you all these sugary drinks, this sugary. Um, it's kind of like
Yeah,
a,
energy
a, a
bars
energy
and
bars and gums and just to
trail
keep you
mix.
going.
We used to
Yes.
we in way back in 2013, I think we joined North Face 100. So that's a 100
Mhm.
kilometer trail hike in Baguio. Of course, we didn't prepare because I was still schooling then, but we went anyway without any preparation. So we weren't able to finish. We finished 25 kilometers and then walked back. So that's about 25 kilometers without any preparation. But we were able to finish 25. But all the while, the only thing that we prepared were the trail mix. And the trail mix, and we were very, very choosy with our trail mix because we were choosing all the chocolate chips, all the sweets, all the dried berries, all the dried fruits, all the very minimal nuts even.
And
So
I
I think those setup is really not the best. We were actually binging on the trail mix that's supposedly good enough for 100 kilometers before we even finish one fourth of the race. We finish our trail mix. So that's
I can totally relate. Because if I'm running a race, I wake up really early because the race around
yeah,
here
usually
usually
start
start
very
around
early.
7 a.m.
Mm,
So at around 4 a.m. I'm already awake because I want to
mm,
eat a really good meal before my
mm,
run. So I
mm,
have time to actually digest my meal
mm,
before I
mm.
start the run. So at 4
Yes.
a.m. I'm awake and I'm eating all these carbohydrates and drinking all these sugary drinks.
Mm.
And, if you think
Oh,
about it, the whole day of running, you're probably about eating about 5,000 calories of just pure
yeah.
carbohydrates and sugar.
Yeah.
And I even had this idea before, like, that it's like, I cannot eat all these sugars. In the back of my mind, I was telling myself, I cannot eat all these sugars during a run. So I'm going to change, you know, the way I eat or my nutrition. So it's
Mm.
funny thinking back about it now that the way I change it, instead of eating all this sugary stuff like gummy bears and with all this Gatorade, I actually went and took some pieces of bread and made like a ball out of breads, and I brought them with me to my runs. So it's like I thought that was healthier than the one I was using before. Because if I'm running more than 13 miles, I have water, I have a lot of food with me,
Mm.
so I'm
Mm.
basically carrying a lot of weight when I'm running
Mm.
because I
Mm.
don't want to run out of food while I'm
Mm.
running.
Mm. Mm.
So fast forward to this new lifestyle, it's so much easier.
Yes. Because actually, for those who are not aware, of course, a lot of our viewers right now, and of course, a lot of them are claiming that they are your top fans. So nagpapa shout out sila sa'yo. We have Gigi, of course, Ayeng, Gilbert. We have our classmates here, Anna Abeliana Casha, Dan Bunying, L.A. Marquez, Chloe, of course, no? And maraming marami pa po. Maraming nagsasabi, ang pogi-pogi nyo daw at alam nilang bagong gupit po kayo.
Thank you. Yeah,
Okay.
ginaya ko lang si Gibo kasi nakita ko si
Sige po,
Gibo
oh.
nagpagupit bago yung appearance niya, kaya sabi ko,
Oh,
"Oy, dapat
nakakainis.
magpagupit din."
Talaga, siya talaga yung nagsabi din. So, siya, si Kibo talaga nagsabi, bagong gapit din, si Bro Oli. So, na-inspire sa'yo, kita mo na, hindi mo talaga alam kung sino mai-inspire mo. Now, going back to our runs, no? Sabi natin before, kasi I really commend you because for someone who is an endurance runner and been fueling on sugar for so long, and you've been doing really well when it comes to your record, and for you to shift, that is something scary for so many endurance runners and athletes. Okay? Kasi never silang naka-imagine that they will go on a run, on a marathon without carbo loading. Kasi yun. Yun yung nakasanayan. At yun yung pinaka parang core. You can never go on that race without carbo loading. For those po na hindi masyadong na-appreciate, may papakita ko sa yung picture, no? So, this is an example of starch and glucose, okay? So, yung red na yan, that is starch, okay? So, para siyang strings, and each
Mhm.
string of that is actually made up of this. And ano yan? That's glucose molecules.
Yeah.
Okay? So, kaya maraming nagre-react nung nag-post tayo na ang isang patatas o isang bread, isang white bread, ay katumbas actually ng 5 to 6 teaspoons of white sugar. Okay? Because white sugar mostly is in this form. Okay? So, kaya siya loose. But starch, carbohydrates, complex carbohydrates, maybe in this form. So, grabe siya ka-compact. Okay? And that's also the concept of carbo loading. With carbo loading, your body makes something like this. So, it's like a string of glucose. But since it's in your body, it's no longer called starch. It is called glycogen. Okay? So, yung glycogen, yun yung nakastore sa liver mo. That is a storage form ng glycogen. carbohydrates sa ating katawan. And each liver can approximately hold about 2,000 calories ng worth of glucose. Now, if you are running, say for example, an ultra marathon, 100 kilometers, mauubos yan. Mauubos yan. Kukulangin yan. Okay? Do you have an estimate? Do you happen to know kung ano yung mga estimates, certain like preparations or up to how many kilometers ka mangangailangan ng refuel when you were based on your experience before?
As a sugar burner or
Yes, sugar burner muna tayo.
your refueling starts the night before. So the night before the run or the night before a race, you're already carb loading. Then you wake up the next day, you carb load some more, and 30 minutes before the run, you're already refueling with sugar. So we have these sugar packets. They're like 100 calories of sugar packets that we put in our, because I bring a backpack with me when I run, because I bring 2 liters of water and all my sugars in my pocket. So I bring 10 of those. And that's not, you're not counting the ones that you get from along the way, the free ones that they give you.
The ones that they just give you. Okay.
Yeah. So I refuel every 30 minutes of 100 calories of just pure sugar.
Yes. So that's actually, you can see, no, if you are a sugar burner, all of your body, everything in your body is fueling in sugar. All your muscles, all of your brains, even your fats. We thought fats are just stored energy. Even our fat cells still needs energy. And even if they are fat, but if you are a sugar burner, they will still feed on sugar. Okay? So, how crazy is that? So, grabe talaga kapag sugar burner ka. That's why it is not sustainable in the long run. Because even if you are an athlete and you are burning all of those sugar, you may not have diabetes because you are using all of those sugar. But the insulin effect ay hindi lang po sa sugar. Yung effect ng insulin when you are chronically elevated ng blood sugar mo, kasi parating mataas yung need mo for blood sugar, thus the spike in your insulin, the insulin will manifest for someone who is an endurance runner, for someone who is very athletic. It may not manifest as diabetes, but it may manifest as liver damage or unknown aches and pains or brain fog or even tumor formation or even a belly. No matter how hard you work out, you will have a belly, you will have muscles, but it will be buried deep down under the fats. So, nagkakaroon pa rin ng accumulation because yung insulin is not just about sugar. It's also about protein buildup. It's also about fat buildup that we actually don't need. So, when was the aha moment that you realized that you need to shift from sugar to other source of energy like fats and ketones?
It was so actually the photo that you used when you advertised this this episode, that before photo is my motivational photo. So that photo, in April, we were checking our photos from a trip and I saw that photo and I just, when you see something and you just know that something needs to happen in the back of your mind, I look so unhealthy in that photo. And I was thinking, what happened? I was running all these miles. Actually, I can totally relate to what when you said you work out a lot, you still have this big belly. So seasonally, in 1 year I lose weight, then I gain it back. So when I'm training hard and preparing for a race, I'm losing weight. But off season, I'm gaining back all the weight. So my weight fluctuated every year. And to a point where when I started, I was around 190 pounds. And when I saw that photo, this photo, I said, something needs to change. If I don't do it now, then I'll probably not do it.
Yeah.
But
Yes, and I think it's also a wake-up call. Kasi for someone who said, you said that you've been healthy, parang you've been somewhat healthy and physically active all your life, no? Tapos bigla-bigla, nakita mo yung photo na yan. This is not how you see yourself. Parang may ganon. Kailan ito nangyari? Were you able to see that as well? Yung parang all the while, iba yung perception natin with our own self. Tapos bigla-bigla, merong isang evidence na bakit ganyan? Na hindi yan yung tingin ko sa sarili ko.
Yeah, that is very true.
Yeah.
I always thought I was this really fit kind of guy because
Mm,
of the things that I do
mm,
physically,
mm,
but that's probably not how people saw me.
mm.
You see yourself from a different angle, and other
Yeah.
people will see you from a different angle.
Mm,
Sometimes they don't want to tell you, not
mm,
because they don't want to hurt your feelings,
mm. And
but
because they love you.
yes, true. But before that photo, there were a lot of signs that I needed to look harder into my life and
Mm.
do some changes. Because before that photo, I was actually suffering from hyperactive thyroid for the last 10
Oh,
years. So I was
okay.
diagnosed with hyperactive thyroid in 2009.
Okay.
And then I was always hypertensive, and I had high blood sugar. I was probably pre-diabetic, and I
Okay.
always had
With
this belly.
medications?
I wasn't on any medication. I was on
Okay.
medication to control my hyperactive thyroid.
Okay.
So that's also the reason for the weight fluctuation every year. Because
Okay.
when I'm drinking my medication, I'm pretty much shutting down my thyroid.
Mm. Mm.
So I ignored all those signs because my mindset was, well, I run every day. I run almost 200 miles every month.
Wow.
So my run, if I run longer, I train harder, I run faster, all of these things will go away.
Mm.
That was my mindset.
Yeah.
But when I saw that photo, why I asked myself, like, why are things not working?
Mm.
And that's when I decided to do some research. And just like everybody else, when you decide to go on diet, you try to research the latest and greatest. So
Mm.
but before
And
that,
also the
I
one that makes sense, that
true.
really makes sense, that will speak to you. Because right now, so many people are looking for that magic pill, as what they say. Or kung ano ba talaga yung pinaka-importante, ano. And not everybody finds this way of life.
That is
Okay,
true.
so there's also special for those people who were able to see this. Because this is not the trend. This is actually, it's now becoming popular. But if you compare it to the popular practice, especially in medicine, especially on what you can see in the advertisements, in all of those marketing and companies, even when you go to the groceries, it will go against all of that. So it will take a really, really strong heart and a very, very brave heart to really try to understand and also be open and also see the science behind this bago mo talaga i-embrace ito. And even if you are about to embrace it, you will even doubt if it will really work. But you embrace it anyway. Because once you are open to it, the common sense, no? Yung pinaka-common sense behind this, hindi talaga madedenay. Okay? It's the only thing na hindi nagko-contradict sa kanyang sarili. Okay? Just like, for example, when someone is being diagnosed with diabetes, tapos sasabihan siya, and then nag-i-insulin na siya, tapos sasabihan siya ng doktor, kailangan mong magbawas ng timbang.
Mhm.
Tapos, sasabihin ng pasyente, paano ako magbabawas ng timbang? Eh, nag-i-inject ako ng insulin. Basta, magbawas ka ng timbang. So, yun. And it's not, it may sound funny, but that is the usual case
Yeah,
of patients who are starting on insulin. And yung pinapagawa sa kanila, pinapa-calorie deficit sila. So, wala na silang makain. At pinapa-exercise pa sila while injecting insulin. So, what will happen? So, yung pasyente, hinang-hina, halos wala nang makain, halos himatayin na sa pag-exercise, sa pagpapapawis, pero ang taba-taba pa din. Because insulin is blocking the body to produce energy coming from fats. It is blocking the fats from burning and be converted into energy. So that is not sustainable. But with low carb and fasting, that is very, very much addressed, no? One of the pinaka basic concept ng low carb and fasting, and why do they usually go together. So sobrang dami ngayon ang nandito. And yes, may nagtatanong, how did you find out the Life Without Rice FB page? Hindi ko rin alam
Oh,
yan.
um,
Facebook
so
suggestions maybe? Or what?
no, actually, going back, I was a member of two Facebook groups in here based in the US. Delay Don't Deny, which
Yeah.
we
I'm
both
a
know
member
about.
din.
And I think I was when I started following Facebook groups in the Philippines when I was researching about the connection of um, intermittent fasting and there
What's
was
the best
something. And
intermittent
then
fasting groups?
no, not some type of illness and intermittent
Okay.
fasting. Then I
Okay.
found Eileen, your previous guest in this
Yes.
show, and that's where I started following her, and I found her group in Facebook, and that's how I guess the rest is history. I found all the other groups and left some of them and stayed in some of them, and I think your group are the last two that I joined.
Thank you so
And
much.
I
And we
joined
are
when it
so
was
happy that you are here.
and
Oh,
I joined it was
speaking of
5,000.
5,000 pa when you joined.
No, yep,
Oh my God. And now we are on
to
225,
30, 25.
230,000. So that's already 225,000 more since you joined. And speaking of joining, meron tayong nandito talaga. Nag-online talaga siya para sa'yo. Hi, Doc. Hi, Kuya Ollie. Earl Stanley Lazo. So, gumising talaga. Gumising at
Hi, Earl.
nag-online. Baka nagtatrabaho yan ngayon. No? So, thank you so much. So, we are already half hour past our time, no? Our dedicated time for this. So, we go straight muna
Sure.
sa ating pinaka-importanteng topic, but we are happy to get to know you at baka based on the comments here, I think kailangan mo mag-podcast kasi maraming nagagandahan sa boses mo. Yeah. May
Thank
mga
you.
fans na, tinitingnan nyo lang, always nyo nilook forward yung reply ni Ollie sa ating groups whenever you have questions. And now, hindi lang basta reply niya sa, sa chat box or sa message box. Pati boses niya. So ngayon, you can have a voice that you can hear whenever you whenever you read his comments. Okay? So we have 5 things now that I wish I should have known or I wish we knew before when we were still starting so that we can correct it. So kahit pa sabihin natin, for those of you who are just joining here, the admins and moderators of Life Without Rice are all volunteers, no? Ano talaga yan? Kawang gawa talaga yan. The moderators and admins there take turns kung sino man ang gising ngayong araw, gising ngayong oras, at the other time zone, nag-shifting para lang ma-accommodate lahat ng post. And they are all equipped with knowledge and experience na when it comes to low carb and fasting and nutrition in general for it to become sustainable, for it to become a lifestyle that we can all follow from beginners to pros. Now, since our guest is not just a low carber but an intermittent faster and an endurance runner din, no? We can get some insights. Kung meron siyang mga top 5 na kung pwede niyang ibilin sa 227,000 members ng Life Without Rice and more to come, of course. Ano yon? Number 1 on your list, what would that be? Or number 5, top 5 muna on the list, what would that be?
Top five. Not necessarily in this order, but
Yes.
I would say always remember that you are a study of one. You know, we sometimes we focus too much on what other people are doing or how they advance in their journey, intermittent fasting and low carb journey, without realizing that our own improvement is actually happening. So always, it's good to take inspiration from other people's improvement. When you see their transformation photos and the things that they do, it's good to take inspiration from that. But also remember that you are two different people, and what one person does is different from the other. So always take that. Always remember that I'm going to borrow a phrase from Alan Kura. Said, YMMV, your mileage may vary. So always remember that. This lifestyle is not one size fits all. Second thing, sometimes we focus too much on ketosis. Ketosis is good when you're starting. Ketosis is when you know that you are burning fat. It's when you know that you are losing that fat that you need to lose. But really, when you're done losing that fat, get out of that mindset of ketosis. Sometimes we focus so much in ketosis that when we get out of ketosis, we stress out. Oh, I'm out of ketosis. What am I going to do? I'm going to stop eating. I'm going to eat. I'm going to drink this olive oil. I'm going to drink this MCT oil just to get back in ketosis. And you're basically stressing yourself. You're doing the wrong thing in this lifestyle. Some people, you don't do that. Just relax. When you get out of ketosis, it's fine. Actually, getting out of ketosis is a good thing.
Yeah.
And then you train yourself to get back to ketosis. When you get in and out of ketosis, you're training your body to have metabolic flexibility.
Yeah.
Because when you're not burning ketones or you're not burning fat, you're burning glucose. And when your body knows how to switch from one fuel source to another, whichever one is more available, then you have metabolic flexibility. This is actually what happened to me, because in the beginning, when I went back to running. So when I started intermittent fasting, I didn't run for 2 months. Then after 2 months of intermittent fasting, I started running again. I put my training wheels back on, started running 2 miles. I started building up my mileage and started, building up my speed until I got back to where I was before. And burning ketones and exercising is sometimes it gets addicting because you have all this energy that it is like never ending energy.
Yeah.
But then again, I started researching what other people do, what other people does, and like other ketogenic runners does. And that's when I found out about this guy, Zach Bitter, who's I think he's still the world record holder for the fastest 100 mile. And I take inspiration from his nutritional knowledge when it comes to running and ketogenic lifestyle. But enough with that. The number 3.
Wait. Before we move on to number 3, I want to emphasize, because everybody is looking into, it's a very good learning that ketosis is not everything that there is. Okay, remember, we are into low carb and somewhat ketogenic diet and fasting even to have some degree of ketosis. So ketosis is like the first escape from the harvest season. So the way we eat, actually, like the standard American diet that's somewhat adapted by Filipinos, except that everything was replaced with rice. All the pasta, all the mashed potato were just replaced with rice. But quantity-wise, proportion-wise, when it comes to carbohydrates, fats, and protein intake, is somewhat just patterned with standard American diet, just like so many other things in the Philippines, no? Pero what we need to emphasize is that we want to escape the perpetual harvest season na nakasanayan natin for almost all of our lives in order for us to reset, to heal. Okay? So we are emphasizing that because majority are still in that harvest season way of eating. So getting into ketosis is a good start. But it is also not the only thing that will matter. Or else what's the problem when you are always in ketosis? So you are giving your body a signal that you're always on a starvation mode. You're always on famine. Walang katapusang famine din. So
Mhm.
by nature, we say that we fast, but we also feast. And we have at least one season or at least 25% of the year at minimum na merong harvest season. So that's why we have to allocate when is the best time to heal, when is the best time to refeed, to restore whatever the imbalances or the losses na nakasanayan natin. Yes, it is correct na sinasabi ng iba na ketogenic diet is not sustainable because pure ketogenic diet is actually a fast mimicking diet. At as much as we love fasting, hindi rin pwede na mag-fasting tayo forever. Okay? Gusto natin yung fasting. But it's best to do fasting at the right time. At the right reasons. Okay? At the right scenario or whatever the circumstances are. Pero hindi pwedeng mag-fasting tayo forever. Or else, we are just shifting the seesaw. Nung una, nasa puro harvest season tayo. And then, we will shift to the other time. Magiging undernourished tayo. That's why so many people are asking, why do I have falling hair? Why do I have dry skin? Why do I have all this? Because you are actually not eating right. You are so much into ketosis, you are so much into losing just fats, na nakaligtaan nyo na ng katawan natin, mabubuhay man ng walang masyadong pagkain coming from calories, but we cannot live for so long without vitamins and minerals, without nutrients. So that's why it is important to know that there should be a time of refeed, and proper refeeding is as important as when fasting. And okay, ketosis is there. And generally, in a year, nakaka-adapt tayo that we are generally feeding on ketones. That's what millions of humans do. But hindi yan 100% of the year. Okay? Hindi yan 100% of the year. There will be times in our life that we actually eat more carbohydrates. But again, we choose the better carbohydrates. And when we do that, we are getting nearer sa ultimate goal, which is metabolic flexibility. And yun yung sinasabi ni Ollie. Metabolic flexibility ay hindi ka matatakot kahit mawala ka sa ketosis because you can maximize whatever energy is there. Pwede kayong gumamit ng glucose when that one is there. At kapag naubos na yan ng katawan mo, your muscles can shift into ketones kung yun din yung nandyan na available. So metabolic flexibility is a better gauge of really having a healthy and sustainable way of eating. It all of these are the tools that we know that we can use. Low carb eating, okay? Fasting, those are the tools that we can use. But we don't use all the tools that we have. Marami tayong tools sa bahay. Pero hindi lahat ginagamit natin all at the same time. The real key is knowing when to use them and when not to use them. Okay? Anything you want to add?
Sure. You mentioned tools, right, Doc? So
Yeah.
intermittent fasting is such a powerful tool.
Mm.
But like any tool in our tool shed or in our garage, they have a tendency to be beneficial. They also have a tendency to be very harmful if if we don't use it the right way.
Yeah.
So you just remember that, don't do what you see other people do when they're doing their fasting. Do what is beneficial for you to meet your goal, whatever that goal is. So that's, like I said, if you overdo things, pretty much almost everything in life, if you overdo it, it might be bad for you. Might be.
Yeah.
So always remember that about fasting. There is one thing also that I have an abbreviation for it. I call it APS when it comes to low carb diet. I call it it's accessibility. This is how I approach low carb diet: accessibility, practicality, sustainability. So some of us, when we look at people doing low carb diet, we want to do what they're doing. Like, oh, he's using MCT oil. I'm going to use MCT oil.
Yeah.
But how can you access that MCT oil? So when it comes to accessibility, uh, practicality, sustainability, I always say, you know, do you have access to food products without jumping through hoops or traveling hundreds of miles to get
Mm.
that type of food?
Yeah.
Do you have, or can you afford it without breaking your bank or going
Mm.
bankrupt? So if the answer to those two questions are yes, then it's sustainable. Your diet is sustainable. If it's not, then it's not sustainable. The best
Mm.
diet that you can go on, the best diet is the one that you can afford.
Yeah.
So if you cannot afford to have that diet, then it's not going to work.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
go for the diet that you can pay for, that you can access, that you can sustain.
Yeah.
So if you think about it, our diet, the Filipino diet, if you take away all the nonsense, if you take away processed food, if you take away inflammatory food, if you take away what else? Um, Food that are high in carbohydrates, you
Yeah.
are left with nutritional low carb diet.
Yeah.
You know, you get the fish, you get the meat, eggs,
Vegetables.
green leafy vegetables.
Mm. Mm.
If you can stick with that, you have
Yeah.
a sustainable, inexpensive low carb diet. You
Mm.
get away from all the nonsense. You know, we sometimes we use almond flour, coconut flour. Those are all good. You know, they help with compliance because it's hard to jump from eating rice to just eating leafy vegetables right away without transitioning into something. So I call those transition foods, and we use it in order to comply with the diet. But if you take all those away, you have a nutritionally balanced low carb diet.
Yeah. That is really true for my patients even who are stressing out and who are asking for like a meal plan. So that's the reason why I don't make a meal plan. So an example as what we discuss in our chat groups in the admins and mods, how about what will you say if I will make a meal plan and I will put there artichokes or rhubarb or all of those. So that would be nonsense, especially for whatever that we want is sustainable. So usually what we teach is the concept and the knowledge so that any person can easily spot which foods are nutritious, which foods will not spike insulin, which foods will not spike sugar. And knowing that, you can actually see kahit saang party ka mag-a-attend, kahit saang lugar ka pa mapadpad, alam na alam mo. Malalaman mo agad just by looking at it kung ano yung parang nutritious, parang okay sa'yo as compared to hindi. So yun yung we are teaching that. Not just letting people, giving them the fish, but teaching them how to fish. Kasi yun talaga yung pinaka-importante. So I'm so glad that even if you're there for the past 3 decades, hindi mo pa rin nalilimutan yung platong Pinoy. Okay? And it's very, very important to our fellow Filipinos. And actually, hindi nyo kailangan mag-complicate. Okay? Yung sinasabi ko usually, kumakain ka ng gulay, kumakain ka ng ulam, mag-focus ka doon. Yung importante lang, wala kang babaguhin sa niluluto mo, huwag ka lang magsaing. Okay? Hindi mo lang kailangan
True.
magsaing. Huwag ka lang magsaing. And then, yung gulay na niluluto mo, doblehin o triplehin. Make it twice, double, 3 times. And the ulam, the meat, so it doesn't even need to be meat, no? Pwede siyang isda. Pwede siyang itlog. Those are good sources of proteins. Okay? So, hindi talaga excuse na sabi nating wala tayong pera. The amount of rice that you are eating in a day, makukuha mo ang degree of satisfaction and the degree of energy and stamina kapag nasanay ka na just by eating 1 or 2 meals. Hindi nila kasi for those who are so used to eating rice and carbohydrates, they can never imagine how to live a day without rice kahit na hindi pa nila nasubukan. Pero for those of you who are watching this for the first time, who have no idea how low carb works, how life without rice works, is that the fact that you've been eating carbohydrates, yun mismo ang nakakapag-trigger sa inyong gutom every 2 to 3 hours. But for, if you ask anyone sa Life Without Rice, 227,000 members right now, kung nagugutom ba sila at mayat-maya, even if they're eating just 2 eggs and a slice of fish and just few vegetables, kung nagugutom sila, sasabihin nila sa'yo na meron pa silang planong mag-dinner. Pero nung dinner nila, hindi pa sila gutom. So they ended up not eating and eating the next day. So that is the most important thing that you should learn. That the carbohydrates that we are stuffing our stomach with is actually the main cause kung bakit in the first place parati tayong ginugutom. Okay, so much of that. We go on to your third learning. What would that be?
Um, Learning. This is what I'm really big on. This is something very important for me. It's never stop learning. Like, I think everybody can relate to that. But also, while you're learning, it's good to read all the books, the articles, and listen to interviews and podcasts. But take that learning and apply it to yourself if it is applicable. If it's not, then don't. But you know how they say knowledge is power. There's something better than that. It's verified knowledge is power. Because if you don't
Oh,
verify it, if you don't apply it to yourself, it's just stories and theories from other people.
yeah,
If you don't try it, you'll never know if it works for you or not. That's the
yeah,
only way that you'll find out if things are working for you.
yeah,
I mean, we
yeah,
can have all the books in our libraries and have all the knowledge in our head. If we don't apply it ourselves, then they're just knowledge,
yeah.
unverified.
That is
Um,
really, really true. Yeah.
Also, sometimes when we before we start something, we always say,
Mm,
"Oh, I'm gonna start it on this date. I'm gonna start it
mm.
on this date." We always set a date on starting something, especially when it comes to diet or
New Year,
lifestyle.
New Year's resolution.
I'll start after New Year. I'll start after the holiday season. All I can say is don't wait until Monday. Don't wait until Monday. There's
Hmm.
nothing you can eat from now until Monday that will make a change in your life.
Yeah.
Start today. If it's nighttime in the
Mm,
Philippines, eat your dinner, and tomorrow, postpone your first meal of the day for 1 hour or 1 hours or 2 hours later.
mm,
If you're eating rice on that first meal, replace that with egg. That's how simple
mm,
this lifestyle is.
mm.
Don't wait, just do it. There's nothing to it.
Yeah.
You're already doing it. All you're doing
Yeah.
is postponing it later and later, the fasting
Mm,
part of it. And then while you're doing that, learn about the food that you should avoid. Look at Dr.
yeah.
Gracie's list. And that's pretty much that you take that guide, put it on your wall, and look at it every day. Before you do
Mm,
go and do your grocery, look at that list.
mm, mm.
And then you're good to go.
Yeah.
This is very simple. The list gets shorter.
Mm.
And you take away all the nonsense, like I said, that list is very short. And
Mhm.
it makes
Mhm.
life so easy. When I
Yeah.
go and do my grocery nowadays, before I used to have 20 different things in my cart. Now I have 5 things. I have meat, I have fish, I have egg, some type of oil, some type of green leafy vegetables.
Yeah.
Five.
Yeah.
Five on my list.
Okay. I usually do that. So I like how you simplify it kasi if for those of you who are familiar with our food list, marami yan. Kahit yung safe list na yan, marami yan. And it's actually designed that way na mas marami yung nakalagay sa safe so that the reader will feel like they are not restricted. Para makita nila, mas marami ang safe kesa sa hindi safe. Yung parang ganong idea. But actually, when I explain that to patients, I will just say two things: ulam at gulay. Yun lang. So it's
True.
just that. Ulam at gulay. Yung ulam mo, kung ayaw mong magprito, then you make all the tinola, all the grill, all of that. And if you want to cook it in oil, fry it, use coconut oil. Yun lang. That's how simple it is. So it's breaking down. And as what you said, no, yung mga almond flour, all of those keto replacement, low carb replacement for the traditional ones like flour and baking. Those are just extra. Those are just extra. Pero, and we usually reserve them on special occasions. Kapag meron talagang demand, kasi we are also very much influenced with culture and all that. At iba rin naman talaga kapag may birthday na may nakikita kang cake dyan. Okay? So, you can maximize that during that time. Kasi I have two ways to address usually the ones who are looking at our food list. Kapag nagsisimula ka pa lang, and if you are already feeling mo deprived ka na, kasi binabawal na sa'yo yung donuts, binabawal na sa'yo yung ice cream, yung chocolates, because they are all in the danger list, you can focus kung ano yung pinaka-paborito mo na nasa safe list. So that kapag deprived ka na, at least you have that favorite thing na safe kainin. Okay? But on the other hand, no? In a parallel universe, kahit paborito mo yang nasa safe list na yan, hindi rin advisable na araw-araw mo siyang kainin. Why? Because if you keep eating all that very yummy or that food that is your favorite na nasa safe list, kapag aaraw-arawin mo siyang kainin, their effect will plateau. Hindi ka na magiging ganon ka-happy. So that's why there is also beauty when you are even intermittently eating your favorites na safe. So that every time you eat them, may pleasure pa din. Because if you already reach that peak ng pleasure, kasi parati mo na siyang kinakain, ang hirap-hirap ng habulin yung ganong klaseng kaligayahan. That food high, that happiness that comes from food, kapag parati mo silang na-experience. So it's good to just have a regular food that you like, that is palatable, masarap pa din, pero hindi yung parang pwede na akong mamatay sa sarap. Yung ganon. Huwag ganon. Okay? So that we make it more sustainable. Otherwise, kapag always kang nagka-capitalize sa pinaka-paborito mong safe food, you tend to look for something else. Maghahanap ka na naman. Keto goodies and all those treats. And let's allow ourselves to have break from all those, and we can really see and appreciate kung ano yung natural na lasa ng mga pagkain. So yun nga yung sinasabi ko, before I cannot imagine ever saying na yung lettuce pala ay matamis, yung avocado pala ay matamis. And when there are times that I'm like, for example, after fasting and I've been eating really clean foods, pati tubig nagiging matamis. So that's how your taste buds become so sensitive again. So kapag always mo siyang pinapakain ng very savory, very rich flavors, no? Very rich in the taste ng mga pagkain, magnanumb yan at maghahanap ka na naman ng kung ano-ano ng mga pagkain. Okay? So thank you. So never stop learning, and yes, totoo 'yan. Yung knowledge na nalalaman mo, especially if you're watching this, so hindi ka na excuse, no? You already have the knowledge. But it only will remain as knowledge unless you apply it yourself. And when you apply it yourself and you reap the benefits, that's the time that it becomes wisdom. And when it becomes wisdom, you don't know kung anong possibilities after that. You might just help another life. You might just even save a life. Your loved ones, even to strangers. So, yung pinaka-importante yan. So, never stop learning is our number 3. We go to number 4.
Was that number 3? Okay.
Never stop learning. Yeah, and always apply, verify your learning.
What else? What else do I have? This is something that I've developed over time, and it pretty much applies to almost everything that we do in life. Okay. And this is pretty much how I started this lifestyle. You find the right motivation. Whether that is your health, your family, or you want to run a faster marathon or whatever that is, find the right motivation when you first start. Okay. The most important thing for me is believe. You have to believe it in order for this thing to work. Because if you don't believe it, it's not going to work. I can almost guarantee you that. And then be open to learnings. There are a lot of ideas, a lot of knowledge that still needs to be unpacked in this lifestyle. And you should prepare when you start this lifestyle, you should prepare yourself for that. This is something, a lot of these things are new from what we've learned
Mm.
from
Mm.
the dogmatic nutritional knowledge that we've been given. So you open your mind to learning new things. And one other thing is to join, communities like Life Without Rice, low carb feasting and fasting community. Because in these communities, you get to grow. This is where you grow. This is where you share your experiences, and this is where you get the knowledge. This is where you get the ideas. These groups become your family, at least your virtual family.
Yeah.
And this is where they cheer you up when you're falling down and cheer you on when you're doing really good. So you get those things. For those four things, you can pretty much start this lifestyle. I mean, it's there's nothing to it, like I said.
Mm. Yeah.
And lastly, I'm gonna talk a little bit about running, because there are a lot of people who are asking question about how do you resume your running after you start fasting. The way I did it, I'm just gonna speak on experience because each one of us is different. So the way I did it, I stopped running for 2 months, and when I went back to running, when I knew I was already fat adapted, then I started running slowly. Like I started running 2 miles, 3 miles, until I built up my mileage, and I started building up my speed after that. And after 2 months, I ran my first race in Hawaii, a half marathon in a fasted state. I was so addicted to running in a fasted state that I
Wow.
only work out in a fasted state now. I don't work out any other way until today. But one of the things that I incorporated back into my diet, on any given day, if I'm not training so hard, my carb intake is probably more than likely 50 or below, sometimes probably less than 10 grams. Um, but when I'm training for a race, when it's training season, I up I increase my carb intake to 50 to 150 grams of carbohydrates, and that's because I'm using it to improve my performance.
Okay.
Some
Can
people
we
call it
ask?
carb cycling, but
Yeah, can we ask what are those possible carbohydrates that you use?
so
Baka kasi yung
base
iba 150 isang slice ng cake yun. Parang ganon. So, ano yung carbohydrates na yan?
so basically, I what I do is I double up the carbohydrates that I'm already eating. So
Mm.
when I'm not training, I'm eating salad, nuts, avocado, whatever trace carbohydrates that I get from the food that I eat. So I double that up. After a while, you already know how much grams of carbohydrates are in those things.
Mm.
And if I don't want to eat too much food, then I incorporate some sweet potato or potato into my diet. I still eat clean carbohydrates. I don't
Yeah.
eat refined carbohydrates.
Okay. Okay, so that's a very important thing. Okay, so we understand that with low carb, no, with low carb, we see that potatoes, sweet potatoes, rice, and fruits are in our caution list. So wala sila sa danger list because the danger list is yung hindi talaga natin kinakain, and they are also synonymous to the list of foods na we believe hindi talaga natural for humans, na never talagang kinain ng mga ancestors natin way back 2 million years ago or way back 10,000 years ago. Hindi natin yon kinakain, yung mga nasa danger list. Okay? But caution list, the fruits, we eat fruits before, in season, in their natural climate, in their natural locality where they are supposedly growing. Okay? We also eat root crops, but not, of course, when they are not growing, like winter. Hindi naman siguro, wala naman siguro root crops na tumutubo ng winter. Okay? So we eat those. Even grains, certain kind of grains like wild grains are available, but not in so much amounts. And berries, we eat that. Nuts, we eat that. But they are in our caution list because we only eat them on a certain time. Okay? And right now, if babalik talaga tayo sa nature, kailangan tayo mismo nagtatanim niyan. Or even, not even that, kung kailan natin sila makikita in the wild. And of course, we know that that is already nonsense. That's already very impractical. But what we can do is like dedicate a time in our life that we can harvest all of those carbohydrates in preparation for a possible like winter or a possible hunting season. And that is what Ollie is doing. He is fueling some kind of increased carbohydrate intake than the usual in preparation for a marathon. So that's like evolutionary mimicry noong mga panahon na maglalakbay ang mga ninuno natin at mag-hunting sila. So that's preparation. And that's how our body works actually. So if you are not on the hunting season, wala ka namang pinaglalaban na marathon o very extensive na physical activity, kahit yung mga, ano ba yung mga usong-uso ngayon, yung mga, ano yun? Ano
CrossFit.
mga, yes, CrossFit and all those, yung, kung wala ka na, hindi ka naman sasali sa Spartan race o triathlon ba yan, you don't need to bulk up. That's what we are saying. Okay? You can use certain amount of carbohydrates on the right times, okay, at to maximize performance, to maximize whatever it is that you wanted to do. But generally speaking, if you are living on a modern day lifestyle talaga, nasa opisina, okay, may sasakyan, hindi naglalakad, safe na safe, walang panahon na bigla kang hahabulin ng aso. Okay? Wala kang kalaban na bigla mong kailangang pagtaguan at tatakbo ka. Okay? So you actually don't need so much of those fuel. Okay? So that is very important when doing this. We can accommodate, of course, some of those cautionless na food. So that is still clean carbohydrates, but not when you are still healing, but not when you are still starting. Kasi for example, fat adaptation can happen in maybe in at least 2 weeks, especially if you're not doing really extended fasting. Just regular intermittent fasting and just casual or liberal low carb. So it might take a while. So hindi pwedeng 1 week ka pa lang naglo-low carb at feeling mo kailangan mo nang mag-carb ulit kasi baka feeling mo ay kinukulang ka na ng carbs. It doesn't happen that way. Okay? So, yes, one of the learnings we can recap first is that ketosis, always remember that you are a study of one. So, eto yung mga learnings natin from Ollie, no? You are a study of one. Our own improvement is the most important. Ano yon? Your mileage, your...
Mileage
ano
may
ngayon?
vary.
Your mileage may vary. So another way of saying that is do not compare yourself to others. Compare yourself to your previous self if you want to do better. Okay? Look at others as inspiration. Pero wag gaya-gaya lang. Kasi yun lang, gusto mo lang igaya. Always ask yourself if it's really fitted for you. Next would be ketosis is good, but it's not the only thing that matters because metabolic flexibility is a better goal. That is to be able to shift from ketones or glucose and whatever available energy is there. Kasi yung pinaka-gauge talaga ng survival of the fittest is not the strongest. It's not really the bulkiest. It's not even the smartest. But who is the most resilient? Kung sino yung pinaka-flexible. And when it comes to nutrition, metabolic flexibility, yun yung pinaka-goal natin. If we want to survive this modern day times na plagued with sugar, okay, and so much food. So yun talaga. And our third learning would be, mga wisdom to ni Ollie. Now, very much applicable talaga. Accessibility, practicality, and sustainability. Iba-iba to kada tao. We cannot tell that to you kung anong accessible para sa'yo, kung anong practical para sa'yo, kung anong sustainable para sa'yo. You have to find your own sweet spot. And of course, that is part of our other learning, which is to never stop learning and verify it yourself. Hindi, kahit kami pa yung naririnig nyo, kahit ako pa ang nagsasabi niyan, verify it. Huwag agad maniniwala, okay? And of course, find the right motivation, and believe that it can be done. Actually, yung belief talaga, siya yung pinaka first and foremost eh. Kasi without belief, without positive thinking that it can be done, wala talaga. Negative thinking pa lang, wala na yan. And that's good because you will have to find a community where you cannot just belong, but you can also grow. And that is what we are trying to do in Life Without Rice and Low Carb Feasting and Fasting community. And to be fat adapted, this is a personal one for those who are also endurance runners. To be fat adapted first, or at least get the hang of it, especially if first time mong mag low carb, especially if first time mong mag IF. Huwag agad-agad ipagsabay. Kasi we know people who yung pinagsabay lahat-lahat, they end up crashing and they feel worse. At sasabihin nila, hindi na ako magsisimula pa nito, mamamatay ako. Because they are doing it all at once. That's so much stress sa katawan. Mental stress, physical stress, no? At kahit hormonal stress, nag-iiba lahat. So, wag ipagsabay-sabay. Kung sanay na sanay ka ng mag-exercise, you can continue that, but apply it slowly but surely. Wag agad-agad sumali sa marathon habang hindi pa ka pa fat adapted. So, Oli, thank you so much for your
Thank you,
time.
Doc.
Parang dali-dali lang ng time and I know dami-dami pang gustong ipapin yan. Kuya Oli, pwede na yan ipin sa announcement section yung mga learnings natin dito. Okay, no gaya-gaya, lang, no sustainability. Kasi pag sawa na, walay na. Okay, research, read, study before doing anything, not because it's a fad. Okay? So, importante talaga. So, nagpapa-thank you din. Maraming nagpapa-thank you sa ating support group. So, yung mga fans, and of course, hi Park Shan, nagpapa-thank you. Thank you daw for your experiences. And, of
Thank
course,
you,
love
everyone.
is family. Any last words before we end? Overtime tayo ng konti, but it's a very nice episode. So,
Sure,
go.
Doc. So I am the reason I am here is I want to share my learnings, the knowledge, and this is what I'm going to encourage everyone to do also. Once you are become some sort of a veteran in this lifestyle, this is such a good thing that you cannot just keep it to yourself. You have to pay
Mm.
it forward. This is the reason I'm here. This is the reason why I belong to Doc Grace's groups. That's why I help moderate both groups because I want to pay the knowledge that I learned from the giants of this community forward. You know, years ago, I met this man who changed the trajectory of our life as a family. And in one of our conversations, he said, to know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived. This is to have succeeded. So he quoted Ralph Waldo Emerson. And until this day, I'm paying his kindness and his genuine desire to help others forward. That's it. That's my last words.
Thank you so much. And I couldn't agree more. Yun talaga yung sinasabi natin. The moment you are in this way of life, first pa lang, kahit in theory pa lang, the moment you learn about this, the science is just too compelling para hindi mo itry. And then once you try it yourself and then you also see the benefit, it's also too compelling to not share it with others. Especially you know that it's free. Wala talagang kahit anong kukontra dito. Kahit expenses magdi-decrease, kahit yung effort. Imagine the less stress sa mga mothers of trying to just do whole day just in the kitchen preparing food. Nga na kung alam lang nila na we don't need to stress so much of that and we don't need to spend so much of those stressful foods, no? Hindi na tayo kakailanganin. And they give up in the end kasi nasa hospital na sila kasi nagkakasakit din sila. So for you guys who do not know, Ollie actually is one of the very few who really ask if he can also become part of the admin. And we couldn't be happier to have him. Ano na lang mangyayari kung hindi siya nag-ask sa atin, di ba? Chloe and Ayeng, we're gonna be so sad. So maraming salamat. I think it was the conversation I had with Earl sa comment section where you just butt in and kung pwede din ba akong sumali dyan, so something like that. And everything became a history na, part of the history ng Life Without Rice and LCFF. And we are going to be there for all of you until kung kailan tayo papayagan, no? Nandyan lang yan. We will always. And I'm glad that everyone here is agreeing that yes, we really have to pay it forward. And I think magkakaroon ka ng ibang guesting sa ibang show kasi merong nagsasabi dito. So, watch out for that. So, guys, maraming salamat. Thank you so much. Ano po yun sa Tagalog naman, Snail Doctor? Ano yun? I-review mo na lang. Nakalimutan ko kung ano yung sinabi ko. Ikaw talaga. Okay, sige. Thank you so much, guys. Wag kayong mag-alala. Your favorite guest will keep on coming here. Requirement yan sa kanila. Dahil part yan ng pagpa-pay it forward. Kasi paminsan-minsan lang tayo na sa Life Without Rice. We can do a cycle, another one, so much learning, no boring times, no dull times with the admins and moderators of Life Without Rice. And of course, one of our admins is our guest today, Olledan Balleras. And thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Maraming salamat. We'll see
Thank
you
you, Doc.
again next
Sure.
next Friday. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.